Steve, I'm weeping. I'm crying, man, because I'm reliving this traumatic experience. It was my mother trying to commit suicide, and she attempted suicide in front of me while my dad was leaving. And she said, please don't leave. And if you do, she grabs a knife. If you do, then I'm gonna hurt myself. Well, she punctures her arm and blood is gushing everywhere. In that moment, I grabbed a towel, I ran over to my mom and I wrapped her arm and I'm like, don't you ever do that again. I've never had a deep voice. Whenever I said it, my brother was in the room, my dad was in the room, my mom was there, and everybody started busting out laughing. So in that moment, my interpretation was, oh, I have the ability to control the state in a room. So I became, at that age, the motivator, the inspirer. Like, I'm the encourager. Like, I feel like the energy in the room is my responsibility. And so that's the first experience to tell myself things like, it's my fault. You know what I mean? All these negative, ugly things that you would never guess that I talk to myself this way because I'm always the encourager and positive person.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Disruptors. Today we got Earon Bevans with Standard Virtual Assistants, and Earon drove in from San Antonio to talk about how he went from serving ministries to building multiple seven-figure businesses. Guys, I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on the show alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you'll take consistent action, you will become one. And guys, if you get value out of the show, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can let YouTube know this is good stuff. You ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right. So what was your life like right before you got into real estate?
That's a good question. Right before I got into real estate, I was a painter. I was painting like construction painting, not artistic painting. And this was probably like the most crucial story. I try to water it down, and I've thought about ways that I can water it down, but I don't know any other way to say it. But I was in the ministry, like you had mentioned, and that was my number one focus. So that was probably, and I credit a lot of my ability to sell and from being in the door-to-door ministry, speaking from stages, being trained by mentors who preach the message and the scriptures from stage. Yeah. And I loved it. I had a passion for it, but I was a little bit imbalanced. And so the previous relationship that I was in, which was a marriage.
At how old?
I was married at 23 years old.
Okay. So
at this point, I'm married for like a year and a half, and my wife at the time she owns a business as a hairstylist, and her business is growing over a year and a half period. And she comes home one day and she's like, Earon, I don't like the way I'm starting to feel about you. And I'm like, whoa, that is not what you want to hear after being married for like a year and a half. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, am I doing something wrong? And she says, well, over the last year and a half, I feel like me and my business have been growing, and I don't feel like you've been growing. And it's not about the money, because I obviously didn't marry you for the money. I married a poor preacher boy. Yeah. Right. And I didn't get paid to preach from the stage. I was, on volunteer work, So when I asked her, like, what's the issue? Like, what? She's like, well, you don't feel that your potential is being missed out on? Like, if you were to die today, your boss wouldn't so much as write me a condolences letter. You'd be replaced within the hour. And she's like, you don't think you have more potential within you? It's not just about like being on stage and preaching. Like, you also have to take care of your family. Like, I need for you to grow. And so I was like, my pride was shattered. But once I got over myself, I realized, well, she wasn't disrespecting me. She was calling me out, and maybe she's bringing out some valid points. Maybe I do have some potential that I'm leaving on the floor right now.
How long did it take for you to get over it?
I would say like about a week. I mean, my heart was crushed.
I mean, like, there's generalities here, right? And people might deem this as sexist or whatever, but like, I don't know, I'm pro science. So like, for the most part, like, men, we pride ourselves on being the breadwinner, right? Like, being able to provide for the family. And the worst person to hear it from is your wife.
Is the person you're supposed to be providing for.
Right? And I think the other thing too is, like, you see this a lot in the entrepreneurial world, right? But I see it mostly more from the men's side, where the men are growing. They're doing the personal development. They're going through coaching, and their business is growing. And the wife is content, more or less. Like, here's a life I've chosen. like, I don't have to do personal development with you. I don't have to grow as a person. You got the other side of that.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. So you took a week.
Yep.
To like get out of bed or whatever.
Process it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened after that?
Yeah. I realized that she was right, that maybe she sees something in me that I didn't see in myself. I didn't see myself as a provider. I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur, much less a businessman or in the world of capitalism. In fact, I kind of prided myself in the fact that I'm a simple kind of guy and I'm okay being content financially.
I don't need earthly possessions.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm incredibly competitive. I'm incredibly competitive. So now that this beast had been awakened in me, now mind you, I'm a high school dropout. So I didn't have any trades. I dropped out of high school to go into the ministry because high school just seemed like a waste of time to me. And I knew I wanted to do something big with my life. I just never imagined that it would be with business. So, I was all in on the ministry, and then I would paint to be able to make ends meet. And so when I licked my wounds and got up, I was like, okay, what can I do? But I hate school. What can I do where I can start making a crap ton of money and start competing as a head, as a provider, and I'm not content with being a provider anymore. Like, I need to make more money than her, and I feel like now this insatiable hunger had been awakened for, I want to make money, I want to be a good provider, and I no longer want this. I never want to have that conversation again where my person is coming to me saying, hey, like, I'm starting to lose respect for you because I'm outgrowing you in this area. And again, it had nothing to, I don't feel like this was a materialistic conversation. I think it was legitimately how it was framed. And that is, I'm now leading you financially, and that doesn't feel good. I want my head to be leading me in all ways, not just spiritually. And so I took that to heart. And so I got on this self-development kick. And that's what started me on the journey to business and entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So, what were you doing in the ministry?
I was preaching from stage, so I was a well-known speaker at a young age.
I mean, I could totally see that.
It was something that I was always fascinated with. I would love to take notes and listen to the speaker. I loved the magic that a good speaker can, like they can cast a spell on an audience. I loved that. And then also door to door, I would preach door to door, sharing the message, try to start conversations. We also did informal preaching where we would go to bus stops and try to see if we can start up random conversations with people and see if we can talk to them about the scriptures.
So you're already selling religion.
I was selling religion. That's right.
All right. So this is, you say preacher boy. It's like, was there a family history, or you're the first one that went into it?
No, it was like my grandfather was a missionary, and my dad was in the ministry, and this is something that was instilled in me at a young age. I rebelled for a long time, so a lot of people who, if you're watching this, they're like, "There's no way," you know what I mean? But I was definitely a big rebel, in my early years in high school. And I was doing music at an early age and getting involved with the lifestyle with music and things like this, but I wasn't fulfilled. I always knew I was going to do something big and impact a lot of people, but I just was not. I wasn't satisfied. And when I started studying the scriptures and then sharing that with other people, there's a level of euphoria that I felt that it was unmatched. I had never felt that before, and so that's what started me on this journey of the ministry and the scriptures and sharing it.
So you look your wounds, you get into personal development. Is that the first direction you went?
That's right.
All right. So what's the first thing you did?
First thing I did, I found this gentleman by the name of Tony Robbins on YouTube University.
Right.
And there was a podcast. I remember I was going to the gym. There was a podcast where he was talking about where he made a statement that just like kicked me in the groin, man. He said, wherever you are financially, physically, wherever you are relationally right now is just an accumulation of all of your decisions and responses and reactions over the last 5, 10, 20 years. Yeah. So he's like, now those responses have come from beliefs. And the only way to change the next 5, 10, 15 years is to change your current beliefs, because your current beliefs will are going to be reflected in your actions, and that's going to, produce the results.
Right.
So he said, I'm going to give you a hack on how to rewire your mind. And I was like, holy crap. And I remember I'm locked in, man. I'm paying attention. He says, I want you to go back in your mind to when you first started casting these limiting beliefs that you currently have on yourself, your current limiting beliefs about money, about employment, about work, about whatever area that you're trying to improve. If you're unhappy with where you are right now, it's because of your current programming, your current beliefs. So I want you to go back to when those limiting beliefs first started. And he says, here's a hint. It probably is associated with a traumatic experience that you had in life. Mm-hmm. Because that's typically where limiting beliefs come from. And he gives the example of the little kid who is playing on the sofa, is backing up on the sofa, falls down, cracks his head on the ceramic vase. He looks over, he sees blood gushing from his skull, and he looks up and he's like, he associates that trauma with brown couches. Mm-hmm. And so now he grows up hating brown couches. And his interpretation is that heights and couches cause pain. And it's like, no, that's a limiting belief. And it was a wrong interpretation. But that's where limiting beliefs come from. It's typically around a conversation that they heard and it hurt their feelings, or some sort of traumatic experience where this misinterpretation, this wrong interpretation. So I went all the way back to... So he says, I want you to go back to that traumatic experience where you can recall your first negative interpretation becoming a limiting belief. Mm-hmm. And he says, so here's how to rewire. Your subconscious mind does not know the difference between a real experience and an imagined experience.
Right.
And so you can literally lie yourself into beliefs. And so he says, what I want you to do is replay that emotionally traumatizing experience, but I want you to pause it in the middle of the scene, and I want you to now step in as third party, and I want you to speak to yourself and give yourself the appropriate interpretation of that experience, and do that as an exercise to rewire that memory and start rewiring your beliefs. And I'm like, this is so crazy that it just might actually do it. And so he says, I want you to write it down. So I get to the gym, I'll never forget. I have my journal, and I'm writing down the experience and I'm reliving it. Steve, I'm weeping. I'm crying, man, because I'm reliving this traumatic experience.
You want to share what your traumatic experience was?
It was my mother trying to commit suicide. And she attempted suicide in front of me while my dad was leaving. She was begging him not to leave. And she said, please don't leave. And if you do, she grabs a knife. If you do, then I'm going to hurt myself. And he called her bluff and started out the door. Well, she punctures her arm, and blood is gushing everywhere. Now, check this out. This is really interesting. In that moment, I want to say I was like six or seven. I grabbed a towel, I ran over to my mom, and I wrapped her arm, and I'm like, don't you ever do that again. Now, I guess I've never had a deep voice. So I guess my voice was really squealy or squeaky, but however... Whenever I said it, my brother was in the room, my dad was in the room, my mom was there, obviously, and everybody started busting out laughing. So in that moment, my interpretation was, oh, I have the ability to control the state in a room. So I became, at that age, the motivator, the inspirer, like I'm the encourager. Like I feel like the energy in the room is my responsibility from that age. But what ended up happening was, I would never talk to anybody about any of the negative things because I'm not supposed to, because I'm the encourager. I have the ability to make people laugh in the darkest of moments. So I would just internalize everything. And so that's the first experience that I can think back to, beginning to tell myself things like, it's my fault that my mom attempted suicide, or I'm not good enough, or you know what I mean? All these negative, ugly things that you would never guess that I talk to myself this way, because I'm always the encourager and positive person. Mm-hmm. So I'm like crying, writing this down. But when it really got emotional is me free, because Tony says to freeze frame the moment, meaning everybody freezes around, and except for you and young you, and you get on your knees and you're gonna speak the proper interpretation into younger you, and the fact that it evokes an emotional response shows you are speaking to your subconscious mind. and make that a habit and start to rewire your mind with these new beliefs. And so that was my first time experiencing self-development.
It's wild, like the idea that you could do that, because there's two different things, right? So like when we're talking about limiting beliefs, like one of the things that I've come to understand with limiting beliefs is they're there to protect you, right? Like it's your safety mechanism. So they're there to protect you. Problem is, it's not protecting you, right? So it's stopping you from doing things to keep you safe, but in reality, it's actually not keeping you safe. So then you got to go back and do these exercises to redo your belief system and remove these limiting beliefs. And like what you just talked about here is like, it's a really, really powerful way, right? I think everyone that's watching might be worthwhile to, or watching and listening might be worthwhile to go back a few minutes to understand this exercise, because this is how you go back, right, without a therapist to go and undo some of that damage that we have inside our own systems.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'd encourage anybody to do this, everybody to do this, because and just warning, like you might shed some tears, you know, and if you're not shedding tears, you probably need to go back a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Because all of us have those moments that you know, it could be a conversation with a parent, you know, somebody that we look up to, you know, crushed our heart, you know, broke our heart, you know, a failure. We knew we could have been doing more and we didn't. We ended up losing or coming in last place. There's these moments, there's pivotal moments that created beliefs in us that have led us up to where we are now.
So we're gonna talk about all those times I didn't get picked to play basketball, right?
led to your dark side.
Yeah, like
your competitive dark side.
Middle school, right? Like, hey, you know, like we've got 5, we're good, right? Maybe that's I got to go back and do this exercise. All right, so you do this exercise, right? You're able to, I mean, it's remarkable that you can go watch. You said YouTube.
Yep.
Watch this Tony Robbins YouTube video.
Yep.
And go do it yourself. Because I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff that he puts out there. I remember going through. I think it's Personal Power. I think it's the one, right? It's like a 30-day series.
Yep.
It's like one of the best things I went through. I think it was Personal Power too, and like it helped a lot. But I don't think I went as far with it as you did. So it's really remarkable. Okay, so you're able to redo your programming. Then what? You're probably a great closer. You're spending tens of thousands on marketing, running appointments, and getting contracts signed. And we both know the only difference between where you are today and where you want to be are those contracts that you didn't get signed. If you had those contracts signed, you would have more money to spend on marketing, more cash on hand to hire the person that you've been looking to hire, and you wouldn't lose any sleep wondering if that one contract is going to close, which would allow you to have more free time to spend with your loved ones or working on your business instead of working in your business. Once you attend our 2-day event, you'll walk away with all the tools you'll need to create deep personal trust, overcome any objection thrown at you, and get homeowners begging you to buy their home. So you have a choice. You can keep doing what you're doing now and getting the results you've been getting, or you can join the hundreds of people that have attended and are simply crushing their respective real estate markets. To attend our event, go to closemysells.com/realestatesales, and I'll see you there.
Yep. I just got on this self-development kick from Tony Robbins. I started to get into more practical things. Like right after Tony Robbins, I found this book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And I started applying this or trying to look for an avenue to apply the compound effect, which the compound effect basically states, you know, small daily habits over a long period of time yield massive, disproportionate results. And I'm like, okay, now I need to find a vehicle to apply the compound effect. Where can I put small daily behaviors into where a year from now I'm going to be unrecognizable financially? So I start looking around everywhere. And of course, like most people in this situation who, you know, no trade, no background, I found sales. And
a lot of people fall into sales.
Yep. and I'm like, this is it. Sales is going to be how I am going to compete and become a provider and become the man that I know that I can be on a financial standpoint.
And when did you figure that out?
This is like 2016. Okay. And I start, at this point I'm doing direct sales at Costco's and Sam's Clubs. I'm the person handing out the samples and then encouraging you to buy. Okay. You know what I mean? And that's where I cut my teeth. From there, I got into door-to-door sales, door knocking and selling energy. You're
Like solar?
So it was before solar really started to hit. This was in deregulated markets. Like I was in Illinois at the time, and if your current provider you're purchasing at 0.032 cents a kilowatt, I can get you to 0.02 cents a kilowatt.
Gotcha. So like for a utility company.
For utility company, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that's where I really started to make my first money and apply the compound effect, which was the daily activity of knocking on doors. If I knock on 100 doors a day, I can just trust. I could be the worst salesman ever. I could have bad breath, be absolutely horrible at sales. But if I stick to this behavior, if I just trust the process, like I'm gonna be unrecognizable in 6 months to a year. And I saw that. And that's what got me on.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I built a team, became a manager, bought a van where I would recruit people. I would take them in the neighborhoods, drop them off, and then we would door knock for 8 hours. And that's when I first started making my first little bit of money.
So, personal question here: were you still with your wife at that point?
At that point, I was. Yeah.
Okay.
I was.
So, did she see like you were hitting your potential?
Yeah, she did.
Okay. So did that dynamic change?
It did.
Okay.
It did. Yeah.
All right. So you're doing door to door. You're having success here. Then what?
I wanted more now. Because I'm like, okay, I'm doing this, and every sell I'm making $50, and off of my agent I can make like a $20 override. Is there something that I could be selling where I could make $500? Is there a product I could be selling where I could be making $1,000 or more? And my father-in-law at the time said, and I was talking to everybody about this because when I become obsessed, it's all I want to talk about. So I'm like, anytime you see me, I'm either talking about God or business, man. You know what I mean? And so he knew about that. So he said, hey, there's a seminar coming to a nearby hotel. It's a legacy tour, and it was the Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar, and it was free. And at the beginning of free, yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting in this hotel room, and I'm watching this guy, this super charismatic guy, give this presentation on how, and he's showing checks on his projector, $5, $10, $15,000.
So he's doing checks before the Instagram.
Oh yeah,
flashing checks on Instagram.
Facts. Yeah, exactly. This was your typical guru before social media, and he's talking about how he's making all this money without using any of his own credit, without using any of his own money, and you can be making money in the next 4 to 5 months utilizing this strategy. I'm sold. Like as far as I'm concerned, I have found the thing that is this is the vehicle that I am going to use to get rich. So at the end of the seminar, they're like, well, if you want to learn more, $500, and you can come to the 2-day course. And so I didn't have any money. So I lean over to my significant other and I'm like, hey, like $500, I promise this is not another thing. Like, please, like, be willing to invest in me, and I will make it worthwhile. Like, this will mean a lot to me. And she put up the $500 for that weekend seminar, and the rest is history. We went to that weekend seminar, and I want to say like 7 or 8 months later, I closed my first wholesale deal for $750.
Nice. You said how, like 8 or 9 months? But
it was 7 to 9 months, give or take.
7 to 9 months. Okay. So you learned how to wholesale from a Rich Dad event?
From a Rich Dad event.
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. I never heard of wholesaling before Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, we had Sharon Lecter in the seat two weeks ago. You know who that is, right? Yeah. So like, it's funny.
Which is really dope. I was looking up podcasts. I was like, no way. That's so cool that you were able to get her on the show.
Yeah. So, all right. So it's real now. Right.
Proof of concept. Yep.
So that 500 turned to $750. Like, we're profitable.
Yep.
And then what happened after that?
It was like that $750 may as well have been $1 million. Steve.
Crack, your first one.
Facts. Because I felt it was like a shark smelling blood. I'm like, I'm looking around like no police came to arrest me. This is real. Wholesaling is real. Like, it's legitimate. I feel like and here's what was crazy about it. I'm looking at this $750. And mind you, this is a lot of money for me. You know what I mean? $750. I'm looking at the seller. The seller is in tears because we solved their problem. The buyer is excited and like patting me on the back. And I just made $750. I'm feeling like a superhero right now. So that was in fourth quarter 2017. 2018, I did $500,000 in assignment fees.
Wow.
We averaged about $40,000 to $50,000 a month, and 10x'd our ad spend because our operational expenses. We were all in at like $5K. At that time. Side note, at that time, if you remember 2017, 2018 in real estate, everybody at that time is preaching mailers, right? Everybody's preaching mailers, and very few people are cold calling at that time.
Right.
Well, I was broke. So I'm like, I can't be doing these mailers, man. I don't have the time because, I'm full time at my job still. I don't have the time to be handwriting all these letters because I for sure can't afford to send them out. And so I started cold calling. And I would skip trace. I would spend like a couple hours. I would drive for dollars once a week. Okay, spend like 4 or 5 hours driving for dollars. Then I would go to Ben Verified, right, or TruePeopleSearch.com where you can get free skip tracing.
Right.
And I would spend another 4 to 5 hours just plugging in one by one into spreadsheets the numbers next to the names and the addresses. And then throughout the week, I would just cold call them. And so that's what we did. That's what we did for the first
Pure hustle.
Yep.
So that's remarkable that you actually did it from pure hustle. That you didn't have to pull a list, or that you didn't pull a list. You didn't have a bulk skip tracing.
Yeah.
Which really wasn't a thing yet.
Batch skip tracing wasn't even making ads yet, bro.
Yeah. So manually skip tracing through the free database. So then, so you said this is through 2018. This is early 2018 when I'm doing this. Okay. Yep. And then what happened after that?
This is when, so now I'm starting to make money. I closed my first real deal on my own. That's like $14,000. Then my next one is like $28,000. My next one is $10,000. And this is all within my first 90 days. I have never touched money like this in my life. So I closed those first 3 deals in about 90 days. I'm looking at my bank account like, okay, it's time to make major moves. So this is when I start looking for mentors. And so in my search for mentors, around that time, I found 3 people. I found Wholesaling Inc., and I fell in love with Brent Daniels, who's still a good friend of mine today, and like one of my favorite mentors up until today. But I hired Joshua Gaiman first with cold calling on steroids, and I found Joshua Gaiman through a Max Maxwell podcast. So I paid him $5,000. He helped me scale my operation through ringless voicemails. We were doing massive ringless voice. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, he was killing with RVMs.
Huh?
He was killing with RVMs.
Crushing it, bro. I crushed it with RVMs. He helped me crush that $500,000 year in 2018.
Yeah.
So from him, he helped me scale my operation. Where I kind of effectively got out of cold calling and went to ringless voicemail, scaling that at a massive level. Then I was like, I gotta go to Brent Daniels. Brent Daniels helped me, turn the operation into predictability. And then I don't know if it was through Brent Daniels, but I know that my next mentor was actually you.
Yeah.
So you had the sales course, and I think at the time it was like $1,500 a month.
Yeah, it was not what it is today.
Yeah. I got it back when it was for the low.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of money. In fact, I remember a confession. I remember, I think it was like 4, 5, 6 months after starting, I had an ebb in business where I had to have the most embarrassing conversation. I don't think we've even talked about this up until now.
We haven't talked about this conversation. I remember this conversation.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
100%
It was probably one of the most embarrassing conversations I've had to have because I'm coming off of like really big months. A lot of people are getting to know me. I'm spending $1,500 a month in like really effective sales training. I'm having an ebb in business. Oh, I remember what it was too. I was in the middle of 2 flips. I was being drained. I was being eaten alive. And I was to the point where I was having to borrow money from my acquisitions people to keep my marketing afloat and pay for unexpected fees in my flips. And I had to have a conversation with Steve Trang, who was, mind you, up until this point, Steve is like a hero, somebody I know in social media. And I'm like, dude, like, I can't afford the training anymore. And I remember you being like, well, why? Like, you've been in the training. Like, do you not feel like it's effective? I'm like, no, it's effective. And then you're like, well, then why wouldn't you continue to pay for it? I'm like, this is such an embarrassing conversation to have. But yeah, I had to stop the training, and I remember being so ashamed from that moment. But yeah, you didn't demean me in any way.
No.
And the next time we effectively met up, we were competing with one another on Closers
But before that,
yeah,
like you had already made a brand for yourself, right? And I didn't know you were working with Josh Gaiman, because I actually know Josh Gaiman, I don't know, from like 2013, 2014, right? Like before he blew up with RBMs, right? Because he was a struggling realtor, I was a struggling realtor, right? He's doing mobile homes. I'm trying to figure out short sales, like go way.
Wow, I did not know that.
Back, right? But yeah, I remember, so I'm in California. I don't know where, but I'm in a hotel with my family, right? But we scheduled our sales call. And so I remember telling my wife, like, hey, I need you to watch the kids. I need to go downstairs to the lobby, right? Which there was like hardly, like it was hard to find the Wi-Fi. Definitely no power supply. I remember that. I was like, I got to make a sales call. And I was looking forward. Like, there's not a lot of times where I feel any pressure on a sales call. But I was thinking, I got to close Earon because he's an influencer, right? If I close him and he tells other people, like, that makes everything easier. So I remember having this conversation. I don't know if it appeared. We can actually go back and watch it. Because I have every sales call I've ever taken.
No
download,
way, bro. Right? That's so crazy. This is what, 2018?
2019. Right? So I have every sales call I've ever taken, like, recorded on Zoom. But I had pressure on myself. I was like, I got to close him because this guy's got influence, right? But yeah, like, you know, it happens where people are like, hey, things aren't working out. Like, you picked up the phone, you didn't duck me, right? You picked the phone, like, hey, I'm being honest with you, I'm being vulnerable with you, I've got problems, I've got challenges. And if I remember correctly, I tried counseling you through those problems as well.
Yeah, you did. Right?
Yep. Like, here's how you get everything back together.
Yep.
Like, it's like falling down is just part of the business, right? Okay, so that happens. And then along the way, actually before this, you already launched Superhuman.
Yep.
What's Superhuman?
Yeah, Superhuman Wholesalers came from, I'm a natural teacher. And I love, there's a certain euphoria that I get from watching the light bulb come off in somebody else's mind. So that's like, I'll borrow the phrase from Pace Morby. It's like, it's the emotional currency. I love money, by the way. But there's a very satisfying emotional currency from helping people and leading people. I love that. And so when I closed my first deal, there was two thoughts. There was like, I'm going to be rich. The second thought is, I'm going to help so many people get rich. And so that was always in the back of my mind. How can I help other people with this? Because this is changing my life. I want to help other people. So in 2019, I said, we're going to launch. And I remember being up at like 4 a.m. And I still have the notes and writing down my vision. And I borrowed the vision from the story of Jesus Christ. And not to get religious, but this is where I borrow. And I said, okay, how is one man, let's borrow religion out of this, okay? So I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about the historical figure, Jesus Christ. Yeah. How is this individual able to impact the course of history over the next like thousands of years? We're still talking about him today,
right?
Whether or not you believe in his doctrine or not, right? So let's look at how he did it. This man, he had a vision that he said would encompass the entire world. So he was crystal clear in his vision. So I'm like, okay, we got to create the vision. The vision has to be massive. So create a massive crystal clear vision. The second thing that he did was he recruited a core group of followers. And he made those the individuals that he primarily poured into, and then he had those individuals perpetuate the mission. So everybody is talking about Andrew Tate. like Andrew Tate came up with this model of having other people preach your message. And it's like, no, that's Jesus Christ. He borrowed it from Jesus, right? And so I'm like, okay, that's how I'm going to do this. That's how I can blow up, that's how I can preach this message and blow up a massive, I had this vision of, I want to create a massive group of people nationwide who are supporting one another to be able to utilize this vehicle of wholesaling to help them, achieve financial security and freedom through real estate. And so I said, okay, we need to recruit the disciples, the individuals who are going to ride for me and die for me, the people who, if I'm like, I need this person gone, they're like, where you want them, in the ocean or the desert, boss? You know what I'm saying? And you only need, historically, you only need 11 of them. Even if one betrays you, you only need 11. So I'm like, okay, I can find 11 other humans who can believe in my vision. And so I said, I'm going to do this, and here's going to be my lead magnet. Because his lead magnet was, be my follower, I will help you change your life forever, in this life and the afterlife, right? So that's his lead magnet. What's my lead magnet? My lead magnet is, I'm going to help 10 people achieve 6 figures with predictability in the next 12 months. That's my lead magnet. That's my pitch. And up until that point, I had created enough of a brand where I feel like I could get 11 people to trust me, right? And so I said, and what we're going to do is we're going to congregate together, because you need to meet with them. By the way, Napoleon Hill talks about this in his book, Think and Grow Rich. He calls it the mastermind principle, where you need to meet with your people at least once a week. So I said, so we started meeting every Sunday in the morning for free, and just going over the principles and KPIs and things like this. Well, we exceeded our goal. In 2019, our goal was to help 10 people hit 6 figures with HUDs and everything. We helped 20 people achieve 6-figure revenues in 2019. Yeah. And since then, the community now has over 20,000 members. We've helped over 100 people achieve 6-figure revenues, and 15 vetted seven-figure earners through Wholesaling Real Estate.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Right? Because this is going to go back to Closers Olympics, because what happened in Closers Olympics, in addition to you going, me and you, there was Team Superhumans.
Yeah.
There was Team Titanium.
Yeah.
There was Team Disruptors. I don't know. I can't remember who else.
There was the Pace Morby. Because remember, oh wait, no, that was until next year. Yeah, that was until 2020. That was the next year. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. 2021.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, you guys have this crazy idea for Closers Olympics. Walk me through what this idea is for Closers Olympics.
Yeah, so the Closers Olympics, a lot of people don't know this. The idea for Closers Olympics was spawned through Quentin Flores and myself. The reason why is because Q and me have always had a rivalry, right? And we kind of grew up in the business together, and so we always knew that we were neck and neck, and we were always comparing our businesses to one another. How many deals did you close? And then we would go on social media and we would create these little memes. Before memes were even a big thing, we were creating memes of one another, clowning one another, like, I'm the illest closer in San Antonio, I can prove it, and we would just have this fun banter back and forth. So finally, Q hits me up one day, and he's like, dude, what if we do a challenge where we go live on all platforms and we call the sellers leads for them? And he's like, what we can do is we'll cross market by using your audience. We'll get my audience there.
That's right, because he had his audience too.
He had a massive audience. I had a growing audience, and I'm like, who else can we get here? He's like, 2 upcoming stars. Well, one major upcoming star was Keith Everett at the time, right? So we're like, let's call Keith and see if he'd be down to do this. And then an OG in the game, we considered OG, was Chris Jefferson. So we asked Chris. So we got him together.
You guys thought of him as the OG?
Oh, yeah.
And you guys are just too young.
Why? You're like OG to Chris?
I mean, we're the same age, approximately, I guess.
No, 100%. He's like the veteran. He's like the veteran in the crew. And they said yes. We pitched it out. We sold out. We said that we were going to cap it out at X amount of seats. We sold out. It even exceeded sales. To this day, We ran that play like 3 times. I think we charged like $150. We sold out every single time. To this day, the lowest viewed one has like over 60,000 views, right? The others are like, over 100,000 views. It went viral. It just crazy. And
no one's done that yet.
Yeah, no one had done that up until that point, right? To not only go live calling, right, but to go live calling, your audience's leads. It was crazy. So from there, Elijah Rubin and Keith Everett come up with the idea during COVID, because COVID hits. Okay, now remember when COVID first hit, baseball shut down, basketball shut down, and then this. Before the fun times COVID, right? Before TikTok COVID, it was like fear COVID. Like everybody was like, yo, what's going to happen to our business? Like, are we going to be able to take care of our families? Before we knew there was going to be a stipend that was given out to people and stuff. There was this fear. And so Elijah Rubin and Keith Everett, true innovators, these guys were like, how can we breathe life into our industry and still make a crap ton of money, right? And they were like, well, sports are gone. What if we bring the Olympics, right? But let's do Olympics for closers.
Right.
And so they hit me up, they hit up Q, and that was the core 4. That was the original core 4. It was Elijah Rubin, Keith Everett, Quentin Flores, and me. And we were like, we need to get all the biggest players in the game involved, like all the people we all look up to, and let's create this incredible experience for people called the Closers Olympics, where we're going to get all the greatest closers in our niche of the industry, and we're all going to be calling leads together. So we called you, Brent Daniels, Max Maxwell, Chris Jefferson, lots of other players.
Carlos's 2 closers. RJ Bates, Steve Morales.
Yep.
Nick Lovano.
Nick Perry was a part of the first one too.
No, he wasn't in it. He was in a different one.
Oh, he was in the next one. Donovan Ruffin was supposed to be in the first one, and then he had his closer come in.
Spicy Tony or whatever.
Yeah. That's right. So fun side note on that, it broke our server. It broke our server. We had a special server set up. Whenever on the day of launch, we coordinated the launch where all of us flooded the timelines with the links for the website and everything. And our website shut down within the first hour. And even the company that we were utilizing to stream the entire thing, it kept shutting down during the Closers Olympics because we had over 1,000 members there on our first Closers Olympics. Yeah, that was a fun time.
So there's a lot of fun there.
Yep.
There's a lot of trash talking.
A lot of trash talk.
I wasn't on the initial list, if you remember.
You weren't?
I was not on the initial list. There was another guru that was on that list who bowed out because his thing was like, if I get, if I show up and fail, this will hurt my sales training business.
Oh, I remember this. I forgot about that, Steve.
Right. So Elijah calls me, I think 2 weeks before, and basically he's like, hey, we got this other guru. He's bouncing out.
Yep.
Because he can't afford to look bad.
That's right.
Right, so I was like, hey, Jesse Burrell said, probably you'd be a good fit.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you'd be up to it. I was like, I'm doing it. He's like, you're not worried about your brand, right? Because what does everyone know me for? It's like real estate.
That's right.
But I also have sales training.
That's right. That's right.
And I basically said to Elijah, right? I was like, Elijah, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna win, and I'm gonna sell a lot of sales training. Right? There was not any hesitation, doubt, or whatever, right? And truth be told, I made a lot of money.
Whoa.
From Closers Olympics. I would.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I mean, Carlos probably made a lot of money.
I'm sure he did.
But that was how I was able to do so well when I joined Collective Genius, because they had already seen me in Closers Olympics.
Wow.
And they're like, if you can teach my team to do what you do, it's like, I can do that, right? If you can teach my team to do what you do, then we want you to be our guy. And so I told Elijah, Closers Olympics crushed it for me.
Wow. I did not know that, Steve.
I can easily tie 6 figures, if not multiple 6 figures, from Closers Olympics.
No way.
Yeah.
That's so dope.
Right. So, but anyway, part of the thing was that you and I were supposed to go.
Yeah.
So what What was that?
Yeah, so it was poetic justice. It was poetic justice, and it was funny the way it all worked out because we had the pregame where the matchups were created, and it was a spin. It was the spin of the wheel, and after the halfway through the matches, me and you are matched up together, and it was poetic justice because you were my mentee.
Mentor.
My mentor. My bad. But we are gonna chop that up and utilize that. No, but you were my mentor, so it was cool because it was like, and so part of my trash talk was the Karate Kid beats Mr. Miyagi, and so yeah, there was a lot of trash talk there, and so it was very humbling whenever you swept the floor with me for sure on our round. But yeah, so I definitely lost, and this is part of the trash talk, that RJ Bates, utilizes to this day. That I have failed. I have lost almost every public live cold calling or sales challenge that I've ever done.
Yeah, well, RJ's heartless. So, but we did that, and that was a lot of fun, right? And then after that, and somewhere along the way, you started a cold calling company.
Yep.
Right. So
about 2 years after that.
So talk to me about that's this one or that's the other one?
That was the first one.
So the first one was 2 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, 2 years after that. Okay. So talk to me about your wholesaling, and then you're doing this other thing. You spent countless weeks going back and forth with a homeowner only to lose a deal because the seller changed their mind, another wholesaler made an unreasonable offer, or what the seller needs from the sale, you just can't pay. Now imagine you've got the ultimate control on a property that you just locked up, meaning you're on title and every decision has to go through you, eliminating virtually every external threat. That's why the installment method was created. Through installment payments, you have full control of the property as your name is now on the title. Any decision the seller wants to make now has to be approved by you. No longer can they pull out equity, go with another buyer, or change their mind. Imagine combining the best of creative finance with the flexibility of marketing the property on the MLS to collect the most amount of revenue possible, all while having total control of the property. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The concept here is simple, but implementing is challenging. So visit wholesale2024.com to learn more so that you'll never have another deal blow up.
So it was an interesting transition because up until this now, 2017 up to 2020, I'm doing these other ventures like coaching, but I'm primarily focused operationally on my wholesaling business. Well, it was recommended to me to read this book by Mike McCallowitz called Profit First, which is a new accounting approach, right? Which basically states instead of suggesting the normal bottom line talk, which is sales minus expenses equals profit, aka the bottom line, the new accounting approach is sales minus profit equals expenses. And if you don't have enough for expenses, you're either not making enough sales, your margins are too low, or your expenses are too high. Very simple math. I could get behind this. Well, there's a chapter in this book, Profit First, called Dig Your Own Well. And what it says is that as entrepreneurs, we're accustomed to being the rainmakers. In other words, we go out and do our rain dance and we make money fall. He says, now that's great, but if you want to run an efficient operation at scale, most founders know that you need to be maniacally frugal. You have to be incredibly efficient in your operation, and that gives you a competitive advantage. And one of the ways that you do that is by not just bringing in more revenue, more top-line revenue, but figure out where you can dig your own well, because you might be sitting on figurative reservoirs of revenue. How? Well, do you have expenses that are unnecessary? Do you have other ways that you could be generating revenue that are underneath the scene, right? To be generating more revenue. And he gave examples of all these different companies. So I'm looking at my company after reading this chapter. He gives a call to action. Go look at your company. Here's the call to action. He's like, you need to solve for the impossible. And then he describes what the impossible is. He says the impossible is, as an entrepreneur, you need to ask yourself, how can I accomplish double my current production on a third of the expenses. He's like, that's the impossible. And he's like, you're going to rack your head and frustrate the hell out of yourself, but you're going to come up with really exciting ideas. Some of them are going to be trash, but you're going to find an idea. If you stick to it and solve for it, you will find ideas that will allow you to maximize your profitability and dig your figurative well while you're doing your rain dance. So I start asking myself this question, okay, how can I double my wholesaling company's revenue on a third? Like, it's impossible. How do you do that? And so I started to look at where is my biggest expense? And my biggest expense was marketing. So I say, okay, how can I offset my marketing? And so long story short, I said, well, what if I owned the company that did the marketing? Then not only would I cut that expense, but that now expense would eventually be an asset. So it wouldn't be in the expense column at all. It would be another means by which I can make money, but also it would solve for being able to provide a faucet of leads so that, you know, I can double my production. And so I became obsessed with this idea of how can I own the marketing company? And I looked at PPC, I looked at, you know, mailers, I looked at door knocking, I looked at all these different marketing methods that I was accustomed to and familiar with. And I was like, the one that I feel like I could probably get into and make something happen, you know, in the most streamlined way is cold calling, because that's what I know. And so I started, you know, my reticulating activator. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but you know, I was starting to look for the opportunities now. And I had a cold calling manager, and I started to court and flirt with this idea with her. And before you knew it, me and her became partners, and we were now scaling a marketing team. And that was in 2022. We scaled that in about a year and a half. We scaled it from about 50 employees to about 400 plus employees. Ended up selling for about 1.4 million and exiting that company, and it was incredible experience. And now I'm starting another virtual staffing agency.
What's the biggest lesson? I mean, because that's a short period of time. 22. So you sold it this year or last year?
Last year.
So you start in 22, you sell it in 23.
Yep.
For 7 figures.
Yep.
What were the lessons in that journey?
There was a lot, and I split ways with my partner on good terms, because I know she's probably gonna see this, so I love you. But I would say, man, have tough conversations early on in business, so that you're not getting to a point where you're trying to exit a company and you're having equity conversations, and it's like, oh, we never wrote that in our management agreement, or like, those suck. Those conversations suck really bad, because now somebody seems greedy or somebody seems entitled. So have the tough conversations up front is one of the lessons that I've learned. And I feel like I'm learning that in all areas of life. Like, have the tough conversations up front. Another thing is, it's such a BS idea that we're going to build a noteworthily successful business, and you're going to scale yourself out of it, and to the point where, like, you're not involved in you're not involved in the operations. Like, it's such a BS philosophy, and I'm like, well, where is this idea coming from? And what I mean is, I think and I realized that it was me, right? This idea of you've just started a company a year ago, and you're like, my company is failing, and I don't know why, and I have my management staff, and you know what I mean, and it's because you've entrusted the operations to people who are not the owners and don't have the owner's mentality. And every successful founder that I have studied, every single successful founder that I have studied is somebody who is borderline micromanagerial, borderline Like, and some are like, I'm not a micromanager. I'm just like involved in the details. It's like, okay, you're a micromanager. You know what I mean? They want to know the details. And at the very least, even if they have other people doing the task, they're involved in the reporting. They want to know what's happening. So I would say that one of the greatest lessons I learned is if I'm going to expect something, then I'm going to verify it over and over and over again, and I'm going to check it, and I'm just going to be involved in the details.
Yeah. So the idea that you can just start a business and after a year just sit in an owner's box and chill, not realistic.
I don't believe that that's realistic. If you're going to sell a company that you're trying to exit for real,
Yeah.
like no, there's no way.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the tough conversations.
Yep.
So knowing what you know now, how would you approach these tough conversations? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I definitely was in this category for far too long. I feel comfortable now. Sales training, surprisingly, has helped with this. But like, how do you walk into a tough conversation?
Yeah, let's start with the end in mind. That's what I would do. Like, let's start with the end in mind. Like, what's your vision? Because my vision is to build something where we're gonna exit. Like, I want to exit something. Like, I want to raise a child that eventually is going to leave the house, you know? And so let's start with the end in mind. And what do you want out of this? What do you want out of this? What do you need from me in interim and by exit in order for you to feel like I've been a good partner? And by the way, like, I'm not just pulling this out of my neck. I have these same conversations with employees and associates who are coming into our, we're starting with the end in mind. Like, hey, if I'm bringing you onto my team, I have an expectation that I want you here for at least 5 years. So what would you need from me as an employer? What would you need from me as a company, as a culture, in order to feel like I'm okay committing to this team for 5 years? So I do the same thing with partners now. Like, let's start with the end in mind. What's your vision? Here's mine. What do you need from the company? What is something that you will absolutely not tolerate? Here are my red flags. Here's the things that I won't tolerate, and just get all. And then of course one of the big ones, right? Equities, or compensation. Is this an equity conversation, or am I 100% owner and you're a profit share, or are you going to be an employee? Or are you going to participate in the exit?
Well, that goes back to like, what do you want out of this?
Yeah, exactly. Role. What are the roles? Here's another good one. Setting the expectation to revisit expectations every incremental period of time. You know what I mean? That way we don't feel like we're locked in. Let's revisit this conversation every 90 days.
So we're on the same page.
To make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, I did the sales leadership thing with Ren Bartlett, and I still remember when we started, right? Because like I've learned, hey, let's do this together. What do you want out of this? What do I want out of this? What are your expectations of me? What can I expect from you? Right? Like those are the conversations we had. And he hit me with another one, which I thought was great. If we come to a situation where you're not holding up to your end of the bargain, like how should I approach this conversation?
Whoa.
I was like, man, that's really good.
That's good.
Right?
That's really freaking good.
So yeah, so the biggest lesson, tough conversation. Another thing too, you mentioned Mike Michalowicz, and like for everyone that's listening, like I love Mike Michalowicz, right? Like, I went through Profit First, I went through Pumpkin Plan. I went through, I think, Clockwork. Right? Like,
have you been through Toilet Paper Entrepreneur?
No.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good book.
I guess so many freaking things to read, but but I love Mike Michalowicz. He's like one of my favorite authors, right? So for those of you that are listening,
and he makes his books fun, right? It's instructional, but they're fun. Yeah, he's witty. He adds a lot of humorous stories in there.
He's got that nerd humor. He doesn't take himself too seriously. Like, so you can actually kind of laugh. As he's sharing his stories. So while you're going through this, right? So I'm going to share with you from the outside looking in, right? Because like you're kind of present, so like you're huge in social media, kind of quiet. Huge in social media, kind of quiet. Made some business decisions. I'm wondering what Aaron's thinking, right? Posts like, hey, like this person doesn't speak for me, right? Like that whole deal. Yeah. So we went through, multiple situations and adversities, right? Yeah. And so on the outside looking in, I was like, what is going on with Aaron? He seems kind of inconsistent. How, like, we haven't talked about this. Like, how does that conversation land? What are your thoughts on that?
Holy smokes. Yeah, the fact that you're saying this out loud is crazy. Because
I'm just on the outside looking in.
No, I appreciate it. In fact, there's been key people to hit me up like, yo, like what's happening? Like if I would have mentioned their name, like people that a lot of people know. Lessons learned, man. Lessons learned along the way. We were talking about this prior to going live, that I feel like I've always prided myself on being somebody who's a great judge of character, and I'm not. I'm not a good judge of character. Like, I fall in love with people really quickly. I forgive really, really quickly, and I found myself in multiple situations over the last few years where I'm partnering up with people who are, for all intents and purposes, perhaps they're great humans, but not great partners in business with me, at least. And I've lost multiple 6 figures, 7 figures in these partnerships. And now, one thing about it that I will say is, one of the lessons learned is to be so much more what's the word? Painstaking about how I go about partnering with people. Because it was humiliating for me to have to go on social media and say, hey, I'm no longer associated with this partner that everybody so fondly associates me with because of issues that are happening behind the scenes. You know what I mean? I lose credibility there.
Right.
And then for people to see that multiple times throughout my career, I've lost certain business opportunities because of that. I've also gained a lot throughout the years, but yeah, does that answer that question? I think that it fundamentally comes down to, if I could answer it in the most succinct way, it's me learning how to vet out who I'm partnering in and associating myself with business.
So is there anything additional you'd like to add then? Like, let's say I call you up, hey, Earon, let's do this thing together. What are the things you're asking yourself now to make sure, is this person I even want to be involved with?
Ooh, that's a good question. The first thing is track record. I have learned I can no longer trust somebody's claims on social media. We have to vet out your claims, because if your role for the organization is going to be operator, you know what I mean? Then
I don't want a social media guy.
You said what?
I don't want a social media guy.
Yeah, I don't want a social media guy anymore, man. Like, I want somebody, you know what I mean? I want somebody real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, if your role is going to be operator, I'd like to know, and our objective is to build a 9-figure company together. I'd like to know that you have experience in operations. And if not, okay, great. Let's go into the experience together with me knowing, so that I'm not relying on you, and then here's the next thing. Track record on the negative side. Are you well reported on by other people in business? Who have you done business with? I love to get referrals now. My current business partner in the virtual staffing agency, I had multiple referrals. Our partners that we work with for multiple aspects of our organization, we get referrals from multiple credible people before we go into business with people now.
So I'm consulting these guys, and they were on a podcast, and they were talking to the guy, and the guy was an attorney, right? The guy running the podcast. And afterwards, he texted me. He's like, "Hey, like, this guy has nothing but good things to say about you. Like, does he owe you money? Like, what's the story?" I was like, "You'll be pretty hard pressed to find people that have something bad to say about me." Now, there's a couple of things here, and maybe this would be helpful for you. I don't know. So I got to listen to ET, right? Eric Thomas, hip hop preacher. And one line I liked that he said a lot was, "Just because I will die for you doesn't mean we should partner."
Whoa!
Right? Like, it's two different things, right? Like, just because I love you does not mean we should work together, right? So I thought that was pretty good.
Man, that's so powerful,
right?
Yeah.
And then you and I was at Wholesaling, and there was an organizer who did some pretty, or her partner did some pretty bad things, right? Stole a lot of money from a lot of people. And I'm talking to Jamil. I was like, "Hey, just so you know, this person has had accusations thrown against her. I picked up the phone. I called her to address the allegations. I did not like her answers to the questions, so she's out of my life." And then Jamil, probably more like you, he's like, "Just like that, you're gonna eliminate her from your life?" I was like, yeah. Like, I have a line that I said, I like to keep my jersey clean, right? I want there to be no question about where I stand, about my integrity and this and that. And if you don't operate in integrity, well, nothing to do with you, because it only makes me look worse. And again, he was like, "Just like that, you're gonna eliminate her from her life?" Like, she was nice to us, she treated us well, she flew us out there, this and I was like, I get all those things, but I want nothing to do with her. Like, there's nothing good can come from continuing this relationship. So, just something that came to my mind, because you love people, Jamil loves people.
Yep.
So these are the challenges you guys have, whereas I'm more cold and calculating. And then we did a podcast at one point for your show. We talked about the dark side.
Yes.
You want to talk about the dark side?
Yep. Yeah. Actually, this is one of and I told you this on the show. This was one of my favorite shows because there's very few people that I've been able to have this conversation with. But the dark side is a phrase used by Tim Grover in the book Relentless, when he discusses the pattern that he's deducted after working with some of the highest performers in basketball, namely Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and what he's found.
My favorite, Charles Barkley.
But yeah, and so the cool thing about this book, Relentless, is that he applies it to business. And so he says, in the world of high performers, there's 3 classifications of high performers. We're not even talking about the people that don't show up, right? We're only talking about high performers. There's 3 categories of high performers.
Guys are getting paid today.
Yeah, that's right. There's the coolers. These are the guys that show up and do what they're supposed to do and nothing else. All right, and then they leave. Those are the Dennis Rodmans of the world. Right? They're gonna be. They might not show up for practice. And you're like, where are you? Oh, I'm in Vegas with strippers and cocaine. And it's
Madonna.
like, what? But when they come in, they perform. Right? Those are the coolers of the world. Then you have the closers of the world. The closers are the people that they come in clutch last minute. These are the guys that are typically very arrogant. They're very cocky. Oftentimes, they're not good with money in the world of business. They're great technicians. They're here for the clutch moments, right? Then you have cleaners. The cleaners are the individuals who the game will be different because these guys were here. Right? The game will be played different because these guys were here. Kobe Bryant, the game is different because Kobe. The game is different because of Jordan, right? And we can name people in art, in science, in mathematics, in business, in politics, who are the cleaners of the world, and in every walk of life. So he says cleaners are these top of the line, top performers, the cream of the crop. He says he noticed that one of the patterns was that they have the ability to tap into the dark side. The dark side is there are pains and traumas and anger and resentment and even just very, very dark aspects of human psychology that they use as fuel. In fact, Kobe Bryant talked about it as being, he says this is when Mamba comes out. And he, in his last interview with Patrick Bet-David, when he was talking about this, he says this is the first time I've ever said this. I've listened to this so many times. He says before big games, he would put on the Michael Myers theme music in his ear, and all he would visualize is the ski mask, because it was emotionless. And the Michael Myers theme music is playing in as he's walking out onto the court, and all he can think about is anybody in my way is being murdered. You know what I'm saying? That's Mamba. And what he was doing is tapping into this dark side. Now, one more illustration about this with Kobe, because I love this. The game that he had after his dad died, and this is also in the documentary called Mamba, I believe. You can hear him in the locker room, like audibly weeping. And he's like angry, and he's like, and he's crying, and he's like hitting his chest, and he's like, ooh. And what he's doing is, and he says this later on, that what he was doing is he was tapping into these darkest of feelings. And then when you see how he performed on the court that day, it's like this emotionless, killer. Like you look at him, like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. You know what I mean? And that's the dark side. It's the ability to take, like the people who perform at the highest level, they are not crushed by pain. They will utilize this pain as fuel to be able to achieve heights of success that just like astonish everybody else.
Yeah, they're just gonna walk over
Yep.
adversity like speed bumps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you have a dark side?
I do have a dark side. Let me say one more thing about the dark side. Every single one of these individuals has Tiger Woods, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. There was a scandal associated with them. Donald Trump, right? You name them. You name somebody at the height of the height of the height. Now, there's some people who manage to just keep it so clean. But if you have this sort of dynamic energy, Napoleon Hill says you're probably extremely sexed in nature, or you have the propensity to some gambling addiction or something. There's a vice lying somewhere within you. And anybody who's like, oh, what? No. It's like, okay, well, you're just not going to play at this level.
Yeah.
But it's just part of the game. If there's an up, there's a down. If there's an in, there's an out, right? If there's yin, there's a yang. If you're going to be dynamic and you're going to have the drive to be able to achieve heights, like you're going to have to keep your dark side in check. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
In regards to me having a dark side, bro, I have a wicked dark side, bro. I was just telling, I was going live every day and I was in front of the camera every single day for like 2 hours a day, and I was starting to like open up to the camera and say stuff that I probably wouldn't normally say because I was getting comfortable. And I was like sharing some of my thoughts. And then people were like, yo, Aaron, that is so dark. And I was like sharing some of my streams of consciousness. And I go very, very dark places. Like I go to I think about my death. I think about how I'm going to die. I think about the times I was abandoned. I think about all of the worst times my heart was broken and the people who left me. And it's the reason why I'm fiercely independent now. And like, I'm so easy to, like, if you've hurt me and or I feel like you're going to hurt me, I'm so easy to be like, I will remove you from my life. And like, you would not even sense that I have any emotion, because I have this, I do have this dark side that I have to utilize it for proper fuel and not like, and not go to a dark place because of it. You know what I mean? But I do have it for sure.
I remember we talked about this, right? Because this is on your podcast, and I was telling you about mine, and you were laughing, right? Because like when I play anything, I don't play to win. Like it's not about winning, right? That sounds crazy, right? As a competitive person, it's not about winning. No, it's all about you losing, right? Like that's why we're playing the game. It's to watch you lose, to watch you get pissed, frustrated, whatever.
I remember that line. That was like one of the best bars of that show. Yeah.
But that's how like if we're gonna play, we're gonna play, right? But that's the goal. So like I still remember like countless nights of just laughing at my best friend, right? Because we're playing like he's always like, all right, run it back. Right? Whether it was NBA Jam, NBA Hoops, right, NFL Street or NFL Blitz or whatever, it was just nonstop. But just to watch him lose, like I didn't even care when I lost.
It's so dark, bro.
Right? It was just to watch you lose. It was great, right? And like we were kind of talking before the show, like we're talking about insider trading, right? I was like, yeah, like I watch these guys, like I'm watching the show Billions, right? Thanks to my friend Felipe Bolsanz at 8020 REI. He's like, you got to watch this show because that guy's you. I was like, let me check it out. And everything he's doing in the show is like, I do that.
Yep.
I'm not seeing anything outside of it. I was like, clearly illegal, right? So it's a good thing I'm not in stocks.
Yeah.
But I was like,
what it reminds me of is there's a direct correlation between entrepreneurs of today and military generals and kings and conquerors of ancient history. And Rockefeller and lots of Andrew Carnegie and Vanderbilt and a lot of these guys, whenever you listen to their autobiographies, or they're oftentimes quoting Napoleon Hill, you know what I mean? And people after World War II are quoting, you know, Winston Churchill and people, Alexander the Great. All of these great business minds, they oftentimes are inspired by these military strategists, and for the longest time,
Napoleon Bonaparte, not Hill.
No, I mean Napoleon Bonaparte, yeah, and Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan and all these incredible conquerors. And I've come to the conclusion now, the reason why is because people like you and I, if we were born hundreds of years ago, it might not have been entrepreneurship. It might have been conquering on the warfield, right? Because of this wiring that we have, where it's like, it's this ambitious wiring where I want to be the number one, and I want everybody else to be subsidiary to me, right? To be subservient in some way.
Yeah. So where I was going to go with this, dang it. So yeah, I would say that this. I remember what it was. So there was a guy I was recruiting, right, as a realtor, and like he had a lot of success. He's had a lot of success, right? So I want to recruit him to join my brokerage. Right, so I was looking forward to meeting him, and like a friend of mine, she's a top female loan officer in the country. She's got this event, so she hosts it. I show up, that guy shows up, so I'm looking forward to meeting him, right? And I meet him, and we had a pleasant conversation, this and that, and like he came to the office. Eventually, didn't come over because I didn't care about COVID, and he was really passionate about COVID, right? So anyway. Oh, I know what it was. I offended him by my COVID videos, by how I was making complete mockery of COVID, right? Anyway, so we're driving home from dinner, and my wife asked me, he's like, hey, like you got to meet him, like how was it? And this is where I know something's wrong with me, is my first two words out of my mouth was like, how was he? I was like, he's soft. That was like first word. She's like, what do you mean he's soft? I was like, he doesn't have it. It's like, what does that mean? I was like, I don't know. I'm just telling you, like, when things go down, I'm not looking to him to be there. Like, he's going to be the first one that's going to fold. And she's like, why do you think like this? It's like, I don't know. I think this is an entrepreneur thing. But I think it's this.
No, dude, you're literally speaking my language. You're literally speaking my language. This is exactly how I talk. In fact, I know that I had this conversation in the last couple weeks or so with my executive team.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, she's like, what's wrong with you? He's like, I don't know. This is who you married.
Yep.
So 2-3 weeks ago, I think 3 weeks ago, we did a cage match, right, with our friend RJ Bates. I think we're friends. I don't know. I won't return my call since I crushed him. So we did a cage match, 2 hours on his channel. And guys will link the video in here in the show notes. So we did a cage match, 2 hours. He talks to sellers. I talk to sellers. He, what's the word I'm looking for? Sabotages me, right? He's like, hey, we're going live at 4, right? I was like, okay, great. And he texts me at like 1:55 or something like that. It's like, where are you? I was like, about to step into a meeting. He's like, we're going live. I was like, no, that's not what we agreed on, right? Like, I told you I'm busy at this time. So I was like, all right, let me put out let me hold my phone call, reschedule some other stuff so I can show up. I show up 15 minutes late. He's got a guy on the phone, and he's contracting 3 properties. Yep. So I show up late. I'm kind of rattled. I don't know if you can tell, because I was not in a good mood, because like things got switched up on me. So I'm kind of rattled before we just start the call, and I came in kind of hot. And then I walk in, like RJ's got 3. Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna get 1 today, and now I got to get 3. And I go through the leads provided by you. Right, you were the one that was providing the leads for that cage match. And we go through it. I get the first person on the phone. She wants, according to the notes from your team, she wants $5,000 for her home. It's been vacant for 13 years, so we don't know what condition it's in. But she wants $5,000, right? And ARV was like $94,000, something like that. And so I get her down, like, how much can you negotiate? I was like, I can do 3, right? But we get an agreement at 3K, right? I was like, okay, good. So I'm down 3-1.
Yep.
RJ takes a call, blows it. I take a second call. I look at it. ARV is this. Here's what he said he wants. That's a deal. Call him up. Lock him up. Second one. All right, I'm down 3-2. But I'm 2 for 2 on your leads. Right? I said, RJ calls, makes a couple more phone calls, goes nowhere. I'm feeling great about myself. And I'm just looking for a package of at least 2 or 3 houses. So that gets me over top. Like, I don't want to have to close 2 more. So I scroll down the sheet. It's like, oh, here's a person with 3 properties. Call the guy up. Long conversation. Yep. But eventually we got an agreement on his property, on his 3 properties. So I'm up 5-3. Yep. And so for the record, you guys will want to watch these videos. I was 3 for 3.
Yep.
Contracted 5 houses.
Yep.
So in about an hour, 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
I contracted 5 properties.
Yep.
RJ contracted 3 properties.
Yep.
From your leads.
Yes, sir.
I think you were the biggest winner. I mean, emotionally, I felt like I was the biggest winner because it goes back to, it's not that I wanted to beat RJ. I wanted him to lose. I accomplished my goals, right? But the biggest winner was you. So talk to me about what were these leads? Because like they were all laydowns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was not a battle.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't contentious,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just called them. As a matter of fact, someone said, Steve and RJ aren't even good closers.
Yep. They just
Right?
have dope leads.
They just got great leads. I was like, hang on there, right? Like
Yeah.
you still have to close them.
Yeah.
Right? But to his point, like the leads were really good. And I
Mm-hmm.
even made the comment, like, man, like if these are the leads I can get every day, I'll close 100 deals a month.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that was like what I said in there.
Yep.
And I don't like not believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about these particular leads.
Yeah. So SVA has a proprietary system that it goes about filtering leads for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will be 100% transparent. I've seen a correlation amongst our clients between high performers that utilize these leads. What I mean by high performer, somebody who has multiple exit strategies, quick speed to lead, and they follow a sales process. That's a high performer in my book. Are performing at anywhere between an 8 to 10 to 10 to, 8 to 1 to about a 10 to 1 lead to contract ratio. My team is performing at about a 10 to 1 lead to contract ratio. And so we have a proprietary system that we go about filtering the leads. We'll utilize some of the highest quality skip tracing for you. We'll pull records from multiple distresses, such as tax liens, code violations, divorce, pre-foreclosures, et cetera, et cetera. Then skip trace them using the highest quality skip tracing, and then we'll have those leads filtered through quality assurance into the database, so that they're bringing in motivated sellers for you.
Yeah.
So that's basically the system, and what we find is that if you're sticking to the best practices, which is, again, speed to lead, getting to the lead within an hour. You're following a sales process, you're making an offer on the initial call, and then you have a relentless follow-up, then there's no way that you're not absolutely crushing it.
So obviously I cherry picked the leads.
Yep.
Right? Because I think there were like 60 on that spreadsheet.
Yep.
Somewhere around there. And they all said, here is what they said they want.
Mm-hmm.
And here is like Zillow and whatever data sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like I can look at it as like, okay, like this person wants this and this is what it's allegedly worth, right? And then you just kind of call and just close them. Like I was baffled by how many people wanted like significant discounts on their homes.
Mm-hmm.
So a question here, because I cut my teeth in the Phoenix market.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was like 15, 20 years ago, but they're not nice today. If you cold call a homeowner in Phoenix, they're fairly impatient, quick to the point. The leads we were calling, they were in St. Louis and Louisville.
Yep.
Like everyone was so damn nice. What's with that?
Yeah, I think number one, it's a cultural thing, but then also there are certain markets that there's not as much competition in. And so, if you're in Phoenix, obviously you can still run a 6-figure operation here.
7-figure.
7-figure operation, yeah. So, but the fact of the matter is these leads are being beat up here. They're being called over and over and over again. Whereas if we call in St. Louis, you're going to have a fraction of the competition. Another great market is Oklahoma. If you call in Oklahoma, hey, how are you? And they're going to tell you about their day, about their cousin, and you know what I mean? You're just going to have a great and actually the challenge is not wasting your time talking about unimportant things because in the name of rapport. You know what I mean? Spending an hour with a seller thinking that you're doing a good job building rapport when it's like, no, you could have accomplished that in 45 minutes or 30 minutes, But yeah, some markets are just going to perform differently with cold callers for sure. Yeah. And those smaller markets are definitely some of them.
So your company pulls a list from multiple data sources.
It'll be one data source.
One data source.
When you say data source, you mean different types of
probate, divorce,
yeah,
whatever.
from multiple data sources. That's correct.
Okay. So you guys are pulling the data, your own process, pulling
Yep.
the data.
Yep.
By VAs.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you got your own VAs pulling the data,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're skip tracing them, and then you have a quality control person inside your organization
That's right.
to make sure everything looks good,
Mm-hmm.
and then you send it over in a spreadsheet. Like, how does that work? Because I was calling out a Google sheet. I wasn't calling out a CRM.
So ours for the challenge just went straight to a spreadsheet that we could share with you guys, and then we
Right.
can monitor the leads. How it would normally go in an operational standpoint, from an operational standpoint, it would be plugged. The leads, the data would be uploaded for you into the dialer. Your caller running the campaign would then make those calls and then have a link to your web form, and then they would upload the deals, the leads information into the web form that's automatically populated into your CRM.
Okay, so guys that are listening, it's simplevaleads.com, simplevaleads.com. And you guys are watching, obviously, it's in the show notes. There should be something popping up on the screen here. So you start a cold calling company in 22.
Yep.
Sell it in 23
Mm-hmm.
for a really nice exit.
Mm-hmm.
And you went ahead and did another one.
Mm-hmm.
Was there not a non-compete?
There wasn't a non-compete, and honestly, I left for a couple reasons. Number one, I didn't see the future of telecommunications virtual staffing in Asia. I saw the future of telecommunications virtual staffing in Egypt, because we can get competitive pricing on labor to offer our clients affordable packages while still having an accent that was a little bit more palatable to the American ear. And plus, it's cheaper for me to fly to Egypt if I need to go visit my operations. Mm-hmm. So there was a few variables. So I was exiting not because it was time for my exit. I've always had the vision of exiting at an 8-figure, 9-figure milestone. But I'm like, let me just exit now, because this is not where I see the big play happening. In addition to that, there were some turbulences that were happening amongst the partnership that I'm like, I think everything is screaming to me that I need to go ahead and cut my losses now and dip.
So you didn't see the future exit from a company based in Asia.
Not for telecommunications.
So expand upon that.
Yeah, Asia, and namely the Philippines. You can have, I believe you can have some of the most incredible virtual assistants for administrative type roles, accounting type roles, back-end operations, logistic type roles. Just brilliant minds that have run my business. But in terms of telecommunications, I felt like I can get better English speakers with customer support and customer service backgrounds and sales backgrounds for at the same cost of labor, if not lower. Mm-hmm. And then there was other variables like being able to travel there and things like that.
So you see more administrative in the Philippines.
Yep.
More sales in Egypt. So
That's
I've
right.
never worked with Egyptians as a VA. So like my own personal experience and what I've seen and training lots of people is Philippines is great for administrative stuff, because as long as there's electricity, like they're good.
Yep.
They're great. Their only challenge is typhoons.
Yep.
Like it seems like it's always typhoon
That's
season,
right.
right?
That's right.
But besides that, like they are like clockwork. And like they're reliable, and they'll follow a process.
That's right.
If we say, "Hey, do it this way," it gets done that way.
That's right.
But in selling, not so much. So we are expanding to South America. As a matter of fact, I went to a timeshare over in Cancun a few weeks ago, and I got a chance to sit in a timeshare, and like, as a salesperson, like I was having the best time of my life watching these guys try to close me, listening to how they handle objections. And afterwards, I came back as I was actually talking to my friend Felipe, because he has a placement agency based off of South America. It's like, if you can find me these timeshare people, I'll hire these guys, because their training is on point.
Whoa.
Like I remember, like we were there, myself, my wife, her two cousins, and their husbands, right? And her cousin gave the objection, like, yeah, the price doesn't, it's not going to work for us. And he just immediately like, okay, like, let's pretend we can agree on price. Like, what else is important to you?
Whoa.
And I was like, this guy is in Mexico. I was like, man, like he's like, that was the perfect answer. And I'm sure he's been trained and scripted and all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that, it was no sweat.
It was natural to him.
It's natural.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, like, I'm going to have to start picking up my own sales guys, potentially Mexico, Central America, South America, as long as they have that timeshare experience, right? Because like my favorite before, it still is, and it hasn't gone away from it, but like my favorite's always been like debt collector, right? If you can handle debt collection, then you can handle just about any situation, because people are pretty angry with you when you're doing debt collection. Right? Forget cold calling homeowners, calling to collect debt.
Yeah.
You get a lot of angry people, right? So I've always loved debt collectors, but now I'm adding to this like timeshare because they get professionally trained. Right? The debt collector, I don't know how much training they get, but they're willing to get punched in the face all day, every day. The timeshare, these guys are trained. So that's where I'm at as far as like location. But yeah, like what you're talking about with Egypt is fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, we've thought about South America as well. In fact, that's one of the places that we want to eventually expand to, for sure.
Yeah. So we talked about serving in the ministries, right? To building multiple seven-figure businesses, and we're talking, if everyone's listening, right, is paying attention, is that we're talking about your wholesaling company, right? Your first one that you exited, and then this one right here. So talk to me about like the biggest lessons now to get you to where you are today. Like we've talked about a lot of different lessons, but like for someone that's starting, listening right now, who is still, doing six figures a year wholesaling, what are the things they need to be on a lookout for if they're trying to build a seven-figure business or multiple seven-figure businesses? There are two types of salespeople out there. There are the convincers and there are the sales professionals. For the first 9 years of my career, I was the convincer. Convincers are always out there trying to convince people to meet with them and buy from them. Their strategy is to try to push hard and never take no for an answer. And by focusing on this strategy, they spend a lot of time on cold calling, the next marketing gimmick, features and benefits, how they and their company are the best, following up until their prospect buys or dies. All of this requires time and energy. The problem isn't the model itself, it's that their approach pushes prospects away. And this is the same exact thing that happened to me before I figured out the close more sales formula. The solution? Sell customers exactly what they want to buy. That's right, I said it. We sell customers exactly what they want to buy. Because I would rather get an easy sale with a happy customer instead of a difficult sale from a customer who felt sold. No thanks. I did that before and it sucks. So here's the deal. I explain everything in the Close More Sales course. It's an 11-module course that shows you everything you need to know to close more sales. The best part, you can use this in any industry, not just real estate. So no matter what you're selling and to who you're selling to, this formula will lead to easier sales. Go to closemoresales.com/sales masterclass. One word, closemoresales.com/sales masterclass.
Yeah. So the skill set to get to six figures is sales. I think if you learn sales and you're selling the right product or service, six figures, and you can do that through hustle. Seven figures, it took me a couple. It took me 3.5, 4 years before like 3.5 years, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21, yeah. So it took me like 3.5, 4 years before we could touch seven figures. And that's like day in, day out, 6 days a week, 12, 15-hour day work weeks. You know what I mean? To get to where we would touch seven figures. And that was because by the time I got there, I hadn't done my taxes the whole time. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I would say, so like big lessons learned was I would say, let's start at a macro level. Number one, it's just, I love what Darren Hardy says. He's like, just be here 5 years from now. I think that's number one. Just be here 5 years from now. Just be here 10 years from now. And basically what he means by that is, The average millionaire only becomes one after 5 years of mastery in his craft. So don't let social media fool you. Like, most of the millionaires who are real on social media, like I can promise you, they've been there for years mastering their craft. And if they've collapsed the time and did it the right way, I guarantee you they were collapsing the time through 15-hour days at 6-7 day work weeks. I promise you. So just be here 5 years from now. That means don't get distracted. Don't go off to the next big sexy thing. Stick with the monotonous. And this reminds me of a quote from Alex Hormozy. I love this so much. He says, "If you can commit to the monotonous, painstaking, mind-numbing, boring work consistently, if you can commit to it for a quarter, you can change your financial trajectory. If you can commit to it for 6 months, you're going to be unrecognizable financially. If you can commit to the mind-numbing, boring, painstaking, behaviors for a year, you can change your life. If you can commit to it for 5 years, you can change the world."
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy. It sounds so crazy, but think about the last time, like if you're watching this, think about the last time you committed to something that was so mind-numbing and so painstaking and so boring and tedious, and you stuck with it 6 days a week for an entire 90 days. I'm almost willing to bet that there's nothing you've ever committed to.
No.
There's nothing that you've ever committed to for that long. Not your diet, not your career, not anything, because most humans won't do it. So if you really think about it, going back to the Jesus Christ example, right, as a historical figure, his ministry only lasted historically 3.5 years. Changed the course of history. But if you read the accounts, 7 days a week, right, for 3.5 years straight, 12 to 15-hour days. And by the way, it says he rose before the sun and oftentimes didn't go to bed until after the sun set. So if you're willing to commit to the painstaking behaviors for 3.5 years, you can change the course of history. The fact of the matter is that most people won't do it. So I think that the first lesson is just be here. So just stay in the game, right? Like that, there's so much credibility just to be like, dang, you're still in the game. And to be like the people that we've seen so many people come and go over the last few years, but it's like, it's cool to like look to the left and the right and be like, okay, like these are the big dogs that are still here. You know what I mean? So that's number one. The next thing is, okay, but if you're going to stay in the game, I love what John D. Rockefeller says. He says, don't be the person that's like, I have 10 years of experience. And he's like, no, you have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. So if you're going to stay in the game, don't just be here as a bench warmer. Continue advancing your skill sets. So if you want to be a 7-figure earner, the skill set that I believe that you need to learn at the seven-figure level is I would encapsulate it by saying leadership. So like recruiting, hiring and retaining good people. You have to be able to lead people at the seven-figure level. Yeah, for sure.
Anything else?
No.
Has it been seamless? This standard SVA?
No, it's everything but seamless.
All right, so like,
okay. So here's a good one. Here's a good one right here. Here is so cliche about like be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like get comfortable being uncomfortable, and be willing to face your fears constantly, because I'm telling you right now, with SVA, our first wave of clients, the whole business imploded. You know what I mean? It just absolutely imploded on itself after generating massive amounts of revenue. And it's like there's these moments of like do I just suck? Like do I just suck as an entrepreneur, as an operator? Like why is everything going wrong? And then so you have to be prepared to go through hell if you're an entrepreneur. So I would say the side point to that, the cure is, I would encourage you to be a voracious reader and or listener of the forefathers in entrepreneurship, the forefathers of noteworthy success. Because what you're going to see in the stories of Andrew Carnegie and Vanderbilt and Ford and all these incredible Steve Jobs and Bezos, what you're going to see is there's these moments where they're like about to go bankrupt and they have to raise, $10 million, and Steve Jobs has to go to his competitor to go raise capital from his competitor. And he talks about his story and how he pitched him on the story and how he framed it, and walks away with a check for X amount of millions of dollars to keep Apple afloat so that now it is what it is. So I would encourage you. So the first point is, you got to be ready to go through hell and go through war, because you're a military commander now as an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. And so how do you do that? The solution, I believe, is become a voracious reader of entrepreneurial history, because it will remind you don't suck, and maybe you do suck, but you don't suck. You don't suck over, right? Because the market's telling you something, probably, right? Or the life is telling you something, but it's not that you just inherently suck while all these things are happening. It has to happen to all of us in order for us to get to where we're going. So just keep pushing, keep swinging, and then and be advancing and growing along the way.
Yeah, and then what you and I have talked about offline is like The Men Who Built America is like one of my favorite shows. Just
love that show.
Raw, red-blooded entrepreneurship and capitalism.
Yep. 100%.
So again, guys, if you guys are interested, it's simplevaleads.com. And again, like, I will put my name on this one because I went through and called these leads, and 3 for 3, like, it was wild. Wild. I wish I could close everything right like that. Like, I would never say I'm 100% closer, but like that felt really, really good.
Yeah. So
describe what your business looks like today versus when you first went out on your own.
Man, my business today, if I could encapsulate it, I would say I have a great staff now. I have just a great team now. Individuals that I can rely on, and obviously still have to verify and inspect things, hold people accountable, right? Part of 5-star management is setting proper expectations and then holding them accountable. But I would say that's probably the biggest difference. I think for the first couple years in business, even though I tried recruiting, I was so fiercely independent that I lost out on money and lost out on opportunity because I'm trying to juggle more balls than I can possibly hold.
Right.
And now I see the need for leadership and having people in the right place and holding them accountable for their rocks and their tasks. I would say that's probably the biggest difference in my business and organization now.
What would you do if money was no object?
In general or in business?
In general.
Man, that's a good question. If money was no object? Man, I would continue to scale my business. I would continue to scale my business and then move on to the next one. I'm going to be building businesses until I die. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be building businesses and leading movements until I die.
Yeah. You know why?
It's fun. It's a thrill. It's a thrill of I'm a leader. I think, and growing up, my dad, he named me Earon Solomon Alexander Bevans. He said Earon because in the scriptures, Earon was Moses' brother. He was the speaker. He said, you're going to be an eloquent speaker one day. He said Solomon, because Solomon was known in the scriptures for his wisdom, and people came to seek him for his wisdom. He's like, you're going to be known for your wisdom. And Alexander was one of the greatest military commanders of all times. And he says, you're going to lead movements whenever you grow older. And so I believe he brainwashed me into believing that I was going to be this really important figure in human history. Mm-hmm. I believe that I'm going to be a very important figure in human history before I leave this earth. So I feel like it's not through politics, because I hate politics. Mm-hmm. I can't stand it. I don't think that it's going to be only through religion, because even with religion, it requires capital to change the world. Mm-hmm. So I know that it's going to involve capitalism and entrepreneurship, because I don't want to have to. I want to affect change, and I want to have the pockets to be able to affect change.
Yeah,
I want to be the one lobbying. You know what I mean? So that's partially why.
My retirement plan is to get into politics.
Really?
Yeah.
No way. That's interesting.
Well,
that's really, really interesting.
Not to do anything important. It's just that it has a really good retirement plan. So.
Okay. That's hilarious.
Right. I mean, they all make 6-figure pensions.
Facts.
So, what is your biggest struggle today?
In life or in business?
Any.
Okay, I'll tell you business and then I'll tell you in life. In business, my biggest struggle right now, I need more capital. I need more capital, man. I need more capital. I need more capital to grow where we want to be. Like we're outgrowing our current revenue. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. That's my biggest struggle right now. Like I'm on a raising capital frenzy right now.
How's that going?
It's going good. I have an investor I'm meeting with on Friday to hopefully raise the capital necessary for us to expand by 4 times, by 4x, you know, by the end of the year. And so
I got my white collar friend, right, Robert Wensley, with Investor Lift. Matter of fact, I called him earlier today for some consultation on some white collar stuff. Right. So when I talked, I was like, yeah, you're my white collar friend, right? Because he was a Harvard grad. And he knows this whole other world about Y Combinator and safes and like debt convertible notes and all these other things. So he's educating me on that side because I'm trying to raise money too, right? So he was my first investor into our sales training organization because we have the same thing. I'm trying to build a company I can exit for 9 figures. Don't know if I will, but I'm trying to make it at least worth that. And so yeah, get yourself, if you don't have one, a good white collar friend who can tell you how to, because we're the blue collar. We just hustle. We just put our nose down. We just work, right? But these guys play in a whole different world.
that's right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you already have that, but if you don't, I would say get yourself one of those.
Noted.
What's your superpower?
My superpower is my ability to inspire people to action. I can get people to serve me. I can get people to serve me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think your dad was really intentional with that name. We actually had a guy in here a little over a month ago, maybe 2 months now, Olufemi, and he's Nigerian, and like they've got like multiple names, kind of like what you have, where it's like they all have these meanings. It's like how cool, like when they name their kids, like here are all the characteristics that we expect from you in your life. It's really, really incredible.
Yep.
And then, what book have you gifted more than any other?
Oof. More than any other, what book?
You've gone through a lot of books.
I've gone through a lot of books, but I've gone through periods where I'm giving away a lot of books. Shoot, the book that I've given away more than any other book, there's like 3 of them, but the one that I've given away more than any other book is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It's the first book that, in fact, our 15-year-old, that was the first book that he started reading. Yeah. And because I feel like it's a simple read, and it will revolutionize your entire life. Yeah. I think if you were to read it and actually apply even some of its
I think that book's been given away a lot, and I'm a very big Darren Hardy fanboy. What are the other 2?
Traction by Gino Wickman and Think and Grow Rich.
Great books. So I want you to think about some last thoughts you want to leave everybody with. Guys, hopefully you got a lot of value today. I think Earon shared a lot of wisdom, particularly for such a young guy. Again, if you guys are interested in checking out those leads, simplevaleads.com. What are the last thoughts you want to leave all the listeners with?
I would tell the audience, you know, if you have feelings of fear and not being worthy and whether or not you can do it, just understand those feelings are never going away. Fear is never completely going away. The only thing that you can do is drown out the fear with more positive thoughts, meaning we must fill our mind. And this is where the term brainwashing comes in, right? We have to brainwash ourselves for positivity, for enthusiasm, for excitement. And so if you're thinking that life's going to get any easier when you get richer, no. Like you have to become stronger to become the steward who's worthy of millions and billions of dollars. Life is going to get worse. It's going to get harder. And so if you have this mindset of I'm just gonna retire young and rich and fat. I'm telling you, it doesn't really exist. And if you do, talk to all the people who have tried it. It's depressing. It's not the life you want to live. Rethink it. You're going to be working for the rest of your life. Accept that, and you will have to constantly be going to battle with negative thoughts, feelings, emotion, and the law of polarity that says if you set out to do something righteous, you will be set on the path of drama. It's just the way life goes.
Yeah, that was a lot of wisdom. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's great. We were supposed to do this a long time ago.
Facts.
Glad it finally happened. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. Disruptors.